It was a peaceful day because my parents weren't home, and it was just Maximus in me. I was sitting on the couch watching a comedy on TV. My eyes glazed over. I almost forgot about everything, except the images flashing in front of me. As the environment was so calm, suddenly Maximus jumped up, his eyes glowing with a strange look, as if he had just realized something important. He quickly ran to the door without saying a word, and with a soft click, he locked it while I was still thinking. He turned around and rushed towards me. His eyes filled with a strong emotion that I couldn't explain. Before I could react, Maximus jumped on me. Time seemed to stop and everything felt tight. I was stunned, and everything around me felt like it was being swept away in a rush. I knew that whatever was happening would change my life forever. Make sure to subscribe to my channel so I can continue bringing you more fascinating, true stories like this one. And don't forget to watch this video till the end and like the video because this story is going to be incredibly interesting. Please hit the like button to show your support. Hi, my name is Isla Carter and I recently turned 18. I live happily with my small family. I'm the only child, so my parents give me a lot of love and attention. They always encourage my personal interests and provide me with the best things. One of my biggest passions is caring for pets, especially beautiful dogs. When I was 14, I fell in love with dogs. I used to watch many animal-related TV shows and was always captivated by the pictures of loving, beautiful dogs for a long time. I asked my parents if I could have a dog. Eventually, they agreed, and one day they took me to a dog farm to choose a puppy. The sound of the puppies in their kennels was overwhelming when I walked in, but one dog caught my attention immediately. It was a Great Dane with soft eyes, smooth fur, and a tall, striking build. Even though Great Danes are known to be big dogs, this one looked so cute and innocent as a puppy. At first glance, I felt a special connection with him. I decided right away that he would be my new friend. At first, my parents were surprised by my choice. They were worried that taking care of such a big dog would be difficult. But I convinced them because of how much I loved him. We named him Maximus and brought him home. The first few days with Maximus were unforgettable. He was playful and loving. Maximus was very smart and quickly learned commands like sit, stand, and wait. We became very close and spent a lot of time together. Whether it was playing on the floor or taking walks in the park, Maximus grew quickly, becoming a big, friendly, and loyal dog. He was more than just a pet to me. He became part of the family. Maximus was always there to comfort me when I felt anxious or down. He showed me the deep bond that exists between people and animals. Because of him, I learned to be patient, responsible, and to appreciate the little things in life. I believe that everyone deserves a friend like Maximus, someone who will love you without conditions and never leave you. I always imagined that Maximus and I would be together forever and live a happy life. But then, something happened on my 18th birthday that changed everything. That Sunday morning was beautiful as usual. Maximus and I went for a walk in the park near our home. He loved these walks, running around, enjoying the fresh air, and sometimes stopping to watch birds or smell the flowers. Seeing Maximus happy always made me smile. But that day was different. As we were walking, Maximus suddenly changed. He stopped, his ears perked up, and his gaze was focused on a distant dog with a beautiful golden coat and an elegant walk. It was another female Great Dane. Something seemed to pull Maximus toward her, and as soon as he noticed her, he started running toward the dog. His legs moved so quickly that I couldn't keep up. I struggled to keep the leash from slipping off his neck, but he was too strong. I almost fell as he dragged me along. Despite my loud shout, it didn't seem like Maximus heard me. It was as though he had fallen in love at first sight. He just ran toward the other dog. I didn't know what to do and my heart raced. In a panic, I shouted, "Stop, Maximus." Maximus immediately stopped. Startled by my shout, he turned to me with a confused, sorry look in his eyes. That's when I realized Maximus understood he had upset me. His eyes were sad and his ears drooped, but I had no choice but to gently pull him back home. On the way home, Maximus didn't act like himself. Normally, he would wag his tail and run happily, but this time he walked quietly next to me. I felt strange. I felt guilty for yelling at Maximus, but I also felt sad for him. I worried if things between us would ever be the same. That night, Maximus lay peacefully in the corner of the room, his eyes dreamy. Maybe he was thinking about the other dog. I approached Maximus, stroked his soft fur, and whispered, "Maximus, I will always love you no matter what, but I need your attention." "Do you understand?" Maximus looked up at me, his eyes glowing as if he understood. I smiled, hoping that nothing would change between us. I hugged Maximus to sleep as I always did. His steady breathing gave me a sense of calm and security, but that night something was different. As I gently touched Maximus's back, he made a small sound almost as if something was wrong. I quickly withdrew my hand. Startled by the sound, Maximus didn't move, but my heart began to race. It was strange in the soft glow of the nightlight. I lay still, staring at the ceiling. Feeling restless, I had always felt a special bond with Maximus, but tonight felt different. I noticed a stick on the floor. Curiosity took over, and I slowly got out of bed to look at it. As I touched the stick, I felt a strange mix of excitement and nervousness. It was warm, and Maximus seemed to shudder every time I touched it. Something unusual came out and stuck to my hand. I stood up, turned to look at Maximus, who was still sleeping soundly. I gently lay down on the bed and hugged Maximus without waking him. That night, I couldn't fall asleep. I couldn't stop thinking about the strange feeling I had. Like something new had opened between Maximus and me. I didn't expect to feel a deeper, different connection with him. Maximus, being a loyal dog, was more than just a pet. He had his own feelings and behaviors that I was starting to understand. That night, I felt something I couldn't explain. Every time I looked at Maximus, I could feel my heart racing, as though a new emotion was building inside me. I no longer saw Maximus just as a dog or a friend, but as something much deeper and unique. I was both excited and confused by what was happening to me. Maximus seemed to notice my change too. His eyes seemed different every time I looked at him, almost like he understood what I was feeling. Sometimes I would catch Maximus staring at me, his eyes full of emotions I couldn't quite understand. Our bond seemed to have grown stronger, and it felt like it was becoming something even more important. One afternoon, Maximus and I were sitting in the yard while the sun peeked through the trees. He lay next to me, resting his head on my leg, his eyes half closed in contentment. I felt the warmth coming from him as I reached down to pet his soft fur. This time, though, it felt different, like an electric current running through my body when I touched him. I shivered slightly as I kept my hand on him. I looked at Maximus for a long time, and his large, brown eyes seemed to understand something that I couldn't fully grasp. I felt like we shared an unspoken connection, but I couldn't explain it. It was confusing, yet comforting. Then one day things started to feel different. Maximus and I were home alone. The house was unusually quiet, usually filled with the laughter and warmth of my parents. Maximus lay beside me, watching me carefully. It felt like something was about to happen, and I felt both excited and uneasy. Maximus seemed to sense the change in the air. He watched me closely, his usual calm gaze now filled with anticipation. The only sound was the ticking of the clock in the living room. As I sat back on the couch, trying to relax while a light movie played on the TV, Maximus rested his head on my knee. His eyes shined in the light from the screen, and it felt like he was waiting for something. Suddenly, Maximus jumped to his feet. His eyes had a strange gleam, like he had just realized something important. Without a word, he rushed to the door and locked it with a soft click. Well, I was still trying to understand what was happening. He turned around with a fierce look in his eyes and rushed toward me. Before I could react, Maximus pounced on me. Time seemed to freeze. Everything around me felt like it was spinning, and I was unable to move. My heart raced in my chest as I stood still, overwhelmed by the sudden rush of emotions and the growing tension in the room. The world seemed to blur, and all I could focus on was the feeling building between Maximus and me. The events that followed were like a whirlwind that took away all the boundaries between us. I didn't know what it caused Maximus to act like this. and I didn't know what to do. But I was certain that what had just happened would change my life forever. It felt like a door had been opened and there was no way to close it. From that moment on, Maximus and I shared a strange connection that was hard to explain. We never talked about it, but I knew that every time our eyes met, we were both thinking about it, like there was a secret only the two of us understood. After that, things felt different. Like we both knew what to do next. Maximus started to approach me with both strength and care. Whenever we were alone in a room, he would gently touch me as if to say that I was his and he was mine. I couldn't say I was completely against it, because deep down I wanted to feel that way. Even though it was both exciting and scary, being with Maximus made me forget everything else. I felt a flood of emotions every time I was near him. It felt like my whole body was responding to him. And it went beyond just physical touch. My breathing became heavier, my heart raced, and I couldn't control myself. All my worries and thoughts disappeared, leaving only Maximus and the strong pull I felt toward him. In moments like this, I would question myself. I knew that my parents would never understand or accept what was happening. It felt wrong, but I couldn't ignore the feeling. It was like an addiction that I couldn't escape. I kept pretending everything was normal in front of my parents, hiding my true feelings. I knew deep down that this couldn't last forever, but I didn't have the courage to stop it. I also didn't want to think about the day when everything would come to light. Day after day, we continued down this path, as if trapped in something we couldn't escape. The day I found out I was accepted into a school far away, I should have been happy. It should have been exciting. But I felt sad. Instead, I knew this meant I would have to leave Maximus, my best friend, the one I had deep feelings for. In the days before I left, I tried not to think about it. I convinced myself that moving away would help me forget about these feelings, that starting a new life would help me feel better. But every time I looked into Maximus's eyes, it felt like I was betraying him and the special bond we shared. The day I left the house was quiet. Maximus followed me silently, his sad eyes watching me with every step. My parents helped me pack, but Maximus seemed to know that things would never be the same. When the car was ready to go, I bent down and gave Maximus one last hug. His fur was still warm, but it felt like saying goodbye to a part of me I couldn't let go of. There was a deep sadness in that hug, something I couldn't explain. It felt like Maximus was trying to hold me back gently, rubbing his head against my shoulder. Tears started to fill my eyes, but I tried to hold them in front of my parents. As the car started to move, I glanced back. Maximus's eyes were bright in the morning light, but they were full of sadness. He didn't run after me. He just stood there watching me leave. That image stayed with me like a quiet goodbye, and it hurt more than words could express. On my way to school, I couldn't stop thinking about Maximus. I thought about all the memories, the secrets and the special times we had shared. I wondered if leaving was the right way to end everything, or if it was just the beginning of an endless longing. I knew I would miss Maximus even in this new place, but I wasn't sure if he would remember me. I started a new chapter in my life, leaving behind feelings I couldn't name, unsaid secrets, and a friendship that could never be the same. Reflecting on everything Maximus and I had shared, I realized that relationships and emotions often go beyond what we expect. I had spent wonderful years with Maximus, a loyal friend who supported me no matter what, starting when I was a young and naive 14-year-old. But that bond also came with complicated feelings that taught me some important lessons. First, I learned that love is more than just a feeling. It's also about duty, respect, and understanding, whether we love a person or a pet. Love requires care and responsibility. Emotions that go beyond normal boundaries can be confusing, but it's important to stay true to your values and know what is right. Second, I realized that sometimes even the best relationships need space to grow. One of the hardest decisions I've ever had to make was leaving Maximus, but it was necessary for me to continue with my life. Sometimes being apart allows both people or animals to grow and live the lives they deserve. It's not about losing something. It's about making space for personal growth. I would advise everyone to appreciate their relationships, but also to keep their emotions in check. Life brings many complex feelings, and sometimes they can feel overwhelming. In those moments, take a step back and think about what is truly best for you and the person or animal you care about. Setting boundaries is important to protect both yourself and those around you. Not every emotion should cross its natural limits, and not every feeling needs to be acted upon. Maximus will always be a beautiful memory from my childhood. I learned how to let go and how to love as I parted ways with him. Growing in the process, I will always remember our friendship. And even though Maximus is no longer with me, I will always cherish and value what we shared.